Good morning, Bitcoiners. I hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. Who could complain on a day like today? Not me. No way. My ear's feeling better. A little bit. We're still not out of the woods, but things are going great. We're in the golden age, everybody. Let's enjoy it. Let's see what folks are saying in the chat. I still don't know how to get it correctly over there. I had an idea, but it's so far not really working. Let me see if I can attempt to work it. Probably not. Probably not. Let me just see quickly. Nah, it's not going to work. I'll just read the comments. I got them here. CB Van says, must pay the troll toll for the boy's soul. Let me try that again. Must pay the troll toll for the boy's soul. Frank Reynolds. There you go. Thanks for the quote, CB Van. John Cena 19. Good morning, friends from Colorado Springs. Escape the Matrix 91. Yo, Chatelet from Philly Airport. Sounds like fun. Soap Miner, good morning, gang. Hello, one and all. Always great to be sharing my morning coffee with you all, says JJ Fox. Raise the mug and sip lightly. It's hot indeed. Seaburger 17 in the house. Good morning. The beginning of a fantastic day. It sure is. Awaiting the continuation of the Great Awakening since Lance 2002. We are here. Good morning, fine folks. You heading into the city, escape the Matrix? If so, head to Trio for lunch by the Art Museum. Tell them Bitcoin Deb sent you. There you go. Heading into beautiful Philadelphia. We love Philadelphia. Good morning, Nolan and Great Awakening crew from a rainy Chicagoland. We got Maximum Suntech here. No more rain and gray. It was very strange for me to deal with that rain and gray over the past couple of days, just because of the sheer amount of sunshine that I have been bathing in over the entire winter, of course. And coming back, I had those 4 straight days of super gray weather. So it was very surprising and jolting, but it was nice. It was nice. We got to enjoy it. Good morning, Rabbi Bowerly and crew, says Charlosky. Good morning, crew. Let's roll, Nolan. Homeschool time. Have to catch the show in the afternoon, but Bitcoin is running. Hello, Jesus is King 04. Love the northern studio view, says JJ Fox. Thank you. Yes, indeed. It is a cold-ish day, but spring-like activity going on. Let me just adjust a little bit here. Make sure everything's cool. Are you seeing me in reverse? Let me see what it looks like on the normal screen. I can't really tell. I might have to readjust this camera in a second here. New studio. Yes, I am indeed backwards on this. Okay, just give me 1 second and I will get it corrected. Mirror camera, and there we go. That's better, right? Now you can read it. Now you can see it. Oh, my ear is still sticking out. We still got the stuck out ear. I just thought you moved to the other side of the building. Coming at you from the opposite side of the building. I modified all my clothes for it. Yeah, we're on the old desktop, but nothing's working correctly, obviously. Nothing ever works correctly with computers. I really want to just chuck them all out the goddamn window. Today, it's no matter what I did, I couldn't log into my Perplexity account. Don't know why. Same email. Couldn't get it to work on the desktop, even though it's the same account. It was letting me log into the by my email, but it was saying you got to upgrade to do anything. I was asking all these questions like, how can I upgrade? They're like, you got to log in and get to, you got to get pro for me to answer that question. And so audio fixed for videos yet? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I got that done today. The annoying way though, So what I had to do is the screen that I used yesterday was because I couldn't get the shared tabs on other devices on Chrome to be able to register normally what works fine, right? If I did this for a long time, if I have it on, if I load up the show and all the tabs I plan on sharing on my laptop, which I can do sort of around the condo, and then when I just sit down here in the studio and where I do the show live, I can just bring up all of those images. Now, there were always problems with that last year, if you remember, when I would do it that way. Sometimes it took forever, sometimes it didn't load, it was super annoying, but right now it just tells me I have no other tabs open on any other computers. I updated the stupid Chrome, I started my computer over, nothing worked, so I had to just redo it all on this fucking computer today, and it worked. So I couldn't go without sharing any of the audio. I'm so used to it now and I enjoy it. But there you go. It was really annoying stuff. I know you guys don't care, and I don't expect you to care. It's some of the most boring content you can actually imagine when I explain to you the technical difficulties that I sometimes have with the show, but it fucking drives me insane, okay? So I've got to vent about it. I don't know, you know, I'm not going to do it, obviously, but I really just felt like trashing all my equipment today. Sitting here having to reload all the fucking pages. Do you know how tedious and annoying it is to load those pages? The whole thing takes me like an hour every day to put all the pages up and everything. And luckily I didn't have to do it twice, but even just sitting here and doing it, because I kind of like doing it in a different spot. So I just come down and sit in the chair and do the show. But I had to sit in this chair for the hour before the show already, and I don't like doing that. It's just annoying. It's just not the way I do it. Normally in Barbados, for example, I just take the laptop, I go outside, I sit in the sun for a few minutes, click, 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 everything gets done. It's not like a difficult hour of me putting up pages. I take my time, I talk to my kids, there's stuff going on in the house. I could probably get it done in 30 minutes if I really just focused only on that. And I usually get it done early and I have enough time to make coffee and do a few other things, but I have to start it at 8. That's sort of my cutoff, is that at 8 a.m., 1 hour before the show, I start putting up the images or the screen shares in the order that I want them in. And today the whole thing got screwed up. But luckily, we're all here, and I'm not going to bore you anymore with that stupid content. There you go. That's what's up. That's what's up. You look different. I couldn't figure it out. So the episode was in reverse yesterday then? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, now that if I'm judging my ear, I remember my crooked ear, the swollen one, was on the other side yesterday. So yeah, I guess yesterday was indeed backwards. Can we trust Adam Back these days? I mean, you don't need to trust him. Saigane Senkan Sank. I think he's right about all the quantum stuff, and I don't think he's Satoshi. Like, I'm not worried about that. I have that in my fake news for the day. We'll talk about that in a second. Indeed, yeah, love them. We appreciate all that you do to bring us the amazing show each day, Nolan. Thank you, Jack2K. I appreciate that. So anyway, I don't want to bore you to make it sound I love doing the show with you guys every day. It's just some of the technical things, if they don't go exactly as I like them to, I get frustrated. But that's life, right? We don't worry too much about that. You know what else is life? The sun is up. That is life. We have a operational sunrise tech. We are doing amazing with the sunrise tech. And I just checked, Bitcoin also running the money tech operational. The Strait of Hormuz using it. We're at 71,000 US trash tokens. We're doing great. Let's have a coffee. Talk about what's new. We're talking about capitalism and communism today, so I thought it was appropriate for me to wear my cypherpunk capitalist shirt in the motif of Star Trek The Next Generation, in the font of Star Trek The Next Generation. This is a Bruce Fenton special from the Satoshi Roundtable, part of the swag offerings over at that fun event. All right, everyone. That's a place where you won't find many NPCs. Where you will find NPCs is right here when I report on the NPC news update. What are the NPCs hearing today? Again, it is not going great. It is not going great. We've got some exercise advice this morning from CBC in Canada. They're letting us know that exercising too hard is landing some women in hospital, experts warn. If you're a woman, don't exercise too hard. You're going to die. You're not going to make it. Newfoundland and Labrador health officials say they're seeing an unusual spike in exertion-related illness called ROM something. And watch out. Moderation, everybody. Don't exercise too hard. Don't push yourself. Don't do it. Don't do it. We get this. The experts are on a roll in Canada. If you can wait till Friday to fill up your tank, guys, things are going so well in Canada that the newspaper is now giving people advice on when to fill up their gas tank. And they're saying, wait till tomorrow, guys. It's going to be better tomorrow. Experts say to hold off until tomorrow. Save your money. Don't get gas today, experts. These are the economists. They're doing great. Be careful of the gas. Don't do it. We get this from The Guardian. Ceasefire changes little for shipping in Strait of Hormuz, experts say. No, there's no change. It's all the same. Analysts expect only limited increase in shipping as vessels will still need to seek Iranian permission to transit. They did not ask the folks who sent their cigar box folks, investigative journalists over there, the Citriana guys. There you go. They found out lots of ships going. We got this from CBC again. Climate change worries spark new river design challenge in Stratford. Guys, the solution to climate change is river designs. You need to redesign the rivers. Wait till Friday to fill up your gas. Sure. Also redesign your rivers. That'll work. But even worse than that, we get this from the New York Times. Climate change denial sees a resurgence in Trump's Washington. Guys, we got mega climate change denialism. More CO2 will be a very significant benefit, they're saying here, these deniers. A conference near the White House drew dozens of people. Guys, dozens of people got together to reject the scientific consensus on climate change. The mood was triumphant. They're even happy about it. They're bragging about it. The New York Times running a special story to let you know that dozens of people are distrusting and questioning the experts. Can you believe consensus in science is being questioned? I thought if you vote on things in science, then that's science. What's happening? How can this be? How can science go against consensus? It's never happened before. Consensus is science, according to the New York Times. And suddenly, the triumphant mood of people out there doubting, they're denying the consensus deniers. Unbelievable. Thank God we have the New York Times here to let us know that there was a meeting of dozens of people. Dozens. What incredible wonders you will see in this time. UK North Sea drilling push risks global climate goals, experts warn. Guys, they're going to be drilling more oil in the North Sea, and that's risking the global climate goals. Oh no. What if dozens of people get together and do this? New York Times has to write an article too. Green line's not enough. We need more oomph behind this type of journalism. Gotta do it. We get this. Immigration arrests of people without criminal convictions have increased 8-fold under Trump, report says. The rise is related to a steep increase in the number of immigration-related street arrests, according to analysis by ICE using data from UC Berkeley. Guys, without criminal convictions. Oh no. So illegal people in America are getting arrested and they don't have criminal convictions. Charges, they're not talking about that. It's only convictions. We get this too, governing, saying, preparing for the real risks of election interference. Guys, could you believe? What if, wait a minute, what if our election systems aren't secure? What if dozens of people get together and doubt the consensus of our elections? What are we going to do then? Election administrators should be more focused on foreign efforts to sway public opinion than on direct tampering with vote counts, experts say. Experts say. Experts say. And we get these classic ones from the New York Times. Here we go. They were from yesterday, but I missed them. Bitcoin's founder, Satoshi Nakamoto, has remained hidden for 17 years. A trail of clues and a year of digging. A year of digging by our reporter, John Kari-Rue, led us to a 55-year-old computer scientist in El Salvador named Adam Back. We get this to the New York Times. My quest to solve Bitcoin's great mystery. Bitcoin's creator has hidden behind the pseudonymous Satoshi Nakamoto for 17 years, but a trail of clues buried deep in crypto lore led to a 55-year-old computer scientist named Adam Back. They found him, the New York Times, guys. They managed to get some people off that pressing issue of dozens of people gathering in Washington, D.C. to doubt the climate science consensus. And now here we go. I knew it. It was Adam Back. It's like Scooby-Doo. If it wasn't for you, New York Times journalists, I'd have gotten away with it too. I'd have gotten away with it. That's what it is. So there you go, everyone. That is the fake news for the day. That's what I got. That's what's happening. Hard journaling. Need gas now. Consider maids. Charlosky, you win for the day. Need gas now. It's not Friday. It's not even Friday. The experts said wait till Friday. And now, but I need it today. Made. Very good stuff. Very good stuff. We love it. We love it. Very good. There you go. That is what we got. All right, folks. Let's move on to not the fake news. See what else is happening in the world. Indeed, as many people are pointing out, there's been a few little issues, a few little snags with the old peace or the ceasefire. The big question has been the Lebanese issue. So we got Israel and Lebanon going at it yesterday. Here's JD Vance. Let me know if the audio comes through. No sound? Okay. Jeez Louise, huh? Let me start it over here. Audio says it's playing. We'll start over. So this is the Lebanese question.
I actually think, and there's a lot of bad faith negotiation and a lot of bad faith, propaganda going on. I think this comes from a legitimate misunderstanding. I think the Iranians thought that the ceasefire included Lebanon, and it just didn't. We never made that promise. We never indicated that was going to be the case. What we said is that the ceasefire would be focused on Iran, and the ceasefire would be focused on America's allies, both Israel and the Gulf Arab states. That said, the Israelis, as I understand it, again, I'm supposed to get a fuller report when I get on the plane, have actually offered to be, frankly, to check themselves a little bit in Lebanon because they want to make sure that our negotiation is successful. That's not because that is part of the ceasefire. I think that's the Israelis trying to set us up for success, and we'll, of course, see how that unfolds in the next few days. But, look, if Iran wants to let this negotiation fall apart in a conflict where they were getting hammered over Lebanon, which has nothing to do with them and which the United States never once said was part of the ceasefire, that's ultimately their choice. We think that would be dumb, but that's their choice. So
The fun thing about this is that, of course, for many years, the Lebanese and Hezbollah, which operates out of southern Lebanon, has denied that they were involved at all with Iran. And so the funny thing here is that one more point on this: for years, the Iranian regime and their defenders in DC has denied being connected to Hezbollah. By Iran demanding a ceasefire in Lebanon to protect their terror asset, Hezbollah, they once again prove they've been waging war in Lebanon all along. Now, the other good thing about this is that it is indeed showing the separation of objectives between the United States and Israel. I think it is important to show these. These are two different countries with totally different goals in this conflict. And so putting a bit of space between America and Israel, I think, is super appropriate. And of course, I make no defense of Netanyahu. I think he's out of gas, out of luck, out of time, and that Israel is more or less divided along the same lines as America between liberals, Democrats, globalists, communists, and what looks like conservatives and populists. However, the conservatives and populists are much weaker as a result of Netanyahu, and therefore the whole coalition that Trump managed to build in America is just non-existent in Israel. And so it looks like they're going to have some change on that end, and that Netanyahu's time in office is starting to wind down. And I do believe Trump is going to go hard on him if he does anything else to scuttle any form of peace deal going on. Again, seeing the difference between American objectives and Israeli objectives in the Middle East is important. And one of the most important ones is here you can see the Strait of Hormuz question again. The United States doesn't seem to be in any rush to get the Strait of Hormuz stuff opened up. And here we see John Conrad. So this Sal Mercogliano and John Conrad have been probably the two best accounts to follow on Twitter when it's come to this Strait of Hormuz question. And now for over a month, they've been asking the question about whether or not the United States doesn't mind it being closed, and what if they're still not in a hurry. And it looks like they're still not in a hurry for the Strait of Hormuz to be completely as it was, for various reasons. Because, of course, I think that the actual conflict in the Middle East has more to do with Europe and the other places, the other destinations for the oil coming out of the Strait of Hormuz, than it does necessarily with the Gulf Coast area or to punish Iran. They seem to be continuing to let Iranian oil through, and they allow it to go to China, they allow it to go to Russia, and more importantly, it seems like they're letting it go through with the Bitcoin toll being paid. Again, here's Anas Analogy, another one of the great accounts on the oil flows and the geopolitics of the oil situation, saying, by God, I want to understand, one, the biggest beneficiary from closing the Strait of Hormuz is the United States. Why does Iran want to provide these priceless services to the United States for decades to come? Two, closing the Strait of Hormuz means no access to oil and liquefied gas for China. And 2 days ago, Iran stopped Qatari liquefied gas tanker headed to China. Why does Iran want to punish its ally? And three, the Israeli planes bombing Iranian targets fly on fuel from Azerbaijani oil via Turkey, via Kazakh's oil via Russia. And Iran has no problem with any of these four countries. And so what's going on is a lot deeper than just Iran versus USA, and a lot deeper than just Iran holding the Strait of Hormuz hostage. Again, the question about whether it's going out and how it's going out is important. And again, everyone yesterday reporting on the Bitcoin tolls being paid. Here you get Coin Join Chris making a fun joke. Iran requires ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz to pay tolls, and Bitcoin. Financial Times reports. Can't really trust the Financial Times, so we still don't know if this is totally confirmed. Coin Join Chris, who's just been on fire lately, by the way. Really funny stuff. Says, meanwhile, the gays of Hormuz require payment in Ethereum. So I had to include that joke just because it's too good. Here's Luke Martin, one of the great degenerate crypto people out there. If you do like some degen crypto folks, Luke Martin is among the best. definitely gets how the game works with crypto and Bitcoin. He says here, it doesn't sound as pretty, but Iran collecting Bitcoin as payment is far more bullish than nations who choose to adopt Bitcoin like El Salvador. In an increasingly multipolar world, it proves there is no second best to Bitcoin. Lots of people analyzing this situation here. Marty Bent as well, talking about the Strait of Hormuz and a little bit about what I was talking about yesterday. Has there been a group that has been more directionally correct about how things would pan out for the global monetary order over the last 15 years than Bitcoiners? Even right here at Roxham, I mean, we just launched Bitcoin for oil in and traded in the Middle East just a couple of weeks ago. And so you're seeing, I mean, that's what we do here at Roxham. We create markets with Bitcoin for commodities like oil. We anticipate, of course, that there will be a global price for oil that isn't a fiat referenced price, because we're starting to see the breakdown of global oil pricing, the breakdown of the entire fiat system, in the sense that the US dollar was the only real fiat currency. Every other fiat currency gained value relative to the dollar. The dollar gained its value relative a little bit to the Federal Reserve, a little bit to what was going on with oil and oil production, because we understood it as the petrodollar for a long time. So we've been saying for a long time that this bimetallic system requires the US dollar to turn into, and we've been saying for a long time that bimetallism is the future for both America and many other places in the world, and that bimetallism will make it look like the US dollar becomes a kind of food stamp, a domestic consumption dollar, and that Bitcoin will be necessary for energy companies, for the price of oil, for the global price of oil to move over to a neutral reference point, a neutral commodity like Bitcoin, so that Bitcoin for oil is a natural extension of America, changing its empire, changing how it functions, embracing bimetallism, and most of the world headed in this direction. So this is just another huge milestone in the trajectory we've been talking about here for many, many years, and the trajectory on which we built this exchange, that Roxham undertakes its operations, its North Star. It's really this question right here. So this having happened, again, shows you why it's so important that Bitcoiners make predictions in public, that we bet with skin in the game, not just saying, oh, I think this will happen, I think this is a good idea. We're actually functionally building companies in this direction. We're actually doing things that anticipate this future world, and that it's already here, that you're seeing this during this moment of international crisis is really important. And here's Alex Gladstein saying, a day in the life of Bitcoin's 17th year, 1.4 trillion 90-year-old firm releases new Bitcoin product. This is just yesterday. Energy exporter demands payment in Bitcoin. New York Times still can't figure out who Satoshi is. Fortune 500 company rolling out Bitcoin payments for 4 million merchants. How we doing, fam? Just unbelievable that this is happening this way. Tommy says the same thing here. Shaughnessy 119 saying, ironic that both Morgan Stanley and Iran tanker ships are buying Bitcoin today. The range, indeed, seeing both one of these old banks, New York Times failing, and the Strait of Hormuz using Bitcoin in this moment is pretty incredible. Here you've got a absolutely fantastic article from Jesse Tevelo. A lot of people talking about it. Game theory, why Iran's demand for Bitcoin is a pivotal moment. Now, this is the correct use of game theory, okay? This is not the way that Fui Egwo guy uses game theory. Fui Egwo guy, Professor Jang, right? I'm Professor Jang, and I'm here to tell you about game theory. That guy, the Professor Jang, the predictive history guy, I think is his name. He's always using game theory, right? Game theory. Look at the game theory. If you buy 2 egg roll, I give you free egg roll. That guy uses game theory as if it's like just it's just a conjuring. It has nothing to do with what he's actually talking about. Bitcoiners have been talking about game theory for many years, and game theory, of course, is all about incentives. It's all about using the incentive system to make predictions, which is exactly what Bitcoiners have been doing, which is exactly what Marty Bent has been saying. The proper use of game theory has nothing to do with what this Professor Egwo guy has to say. Free Egwos, if you buy 2, get 1 free, has nothing to do with game theory. And he just uses game theory because it's like a trendy word and people talk about it a lot. It makes you sound smart, but in general, he's just there slipping game theory in to hide his propaganda, I would say, right? Don't forget, this is the guy who said that Bitcoin can be shut off with a button, right? Did he predict that the Strait of Hormuz was going to go to Bitcoin tolls? Did he predict that? No, no, no. He said Iran was going to beat America, and that America was going to get caught in a religious war in the Middle East and was going to get annihilated, and China was going to take over. All right, that's what he said. He went with the Dugin version of the World War III conflict. Now, you know, there are belligerents in this World War III system. There's the Chinese system, which is a legitimate system. You got to respect the Chinese system. You got to respect even Professor Zhang for what he's doing, right? But again, his incorrect use of game theory and how he sprinkles it in order to get some form of credibility for some people and to, I think, trick people, right? Because there's nothing game theoretic about what he's talking about. He's not talking about incentives. He's not talking about anything like that. What we have here from Jesse is the correct use by a Bitcoiner of game theory and what it means. Again, not the Fui Egwo guy version. So he's here arguing that the Iranian reported proposal to require Bitcoin toll payments for ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz represents a major symbolic turning point for Bitcoin. And even if the policy never takes effect, the significance lies in the fact that nation states are publicly framing Bitcoin as a tool for geopolitical settlement. And this really marks a shift from seeing Bitcoin as a speculative asset to recognizing it as a sovereign financial infrastructure, a neutral one as well. The neutrality of it is what's important. I said from COVID on, I could tell that the only two markets that really mattered, if you looked at the kind of economic dip that America suffered or the world suffered just from having restaurants shut down, it was all fake. You start to realize that part of the consumption economy isn't really the economy. The economy in fiat, the economy that we created, is Wall Street and the energy companies. I've been saying to you for a long time that to separate money and state, you really need to focus on the two important pillars of the fiat economy, because those are the ones that are propping up the collusion of money and state. And again, they are Wall Street and the energy systems. In the end, Bitcoin is destined to wipe Wall Street out, in the sense that the best and brightest went into Wall Street for years. You're still going to have a type of Wall Street, but you don't want Wall Street to suck up all of the best and brightest for a whole generation. That is really what we're getting at with Bitcoin. By making it easy to save money again, low IQ to save money again, you're not going to be attracting all of this high IQ into Wall Street. You're going back to what it used to be. Before the Federal Reserve, the best and brightest were cattle ranchers. The best and brightest were farmers. People lament a lot about what's happened to farmers in America, and it's true. But part of it is that the only farmers that are left are not really the best farmers. They're not attracting the Teddy Roosevelts anymore. So I don't mean this to criticize our farming base in general. What I mean to say is that it hasn't been a good enough job to continue to attract the sons of the farmers, to continue to attract new farmers. It's been living on fumes, if you will. And if you think about where human capital is headed, farming is going to be a big part of it. They're going to use technology and stuff like that, of course, important. But seeing this whole change and realizing that the separation of money and state had to go through the two most important pillars of the fiat petrodollar system, being energy companies who really run the world and the banks who also ran the world for an entire generation. You've got to go through those, and that's where it is the most important part, right? So the core claim of this article here is that Bitcoin matters because it operates outside the control of banks, governments, and traditional payment rails. Unlike fiat, which can be frozen, sanctioned, or censored, Bitcoin allows value to move without relying on trusted intermediaries. And the author here argues that it makes it especially attractive to countries facing sanctions and exclusion from the dollar-based global financial system. Iran's alleged Bitcoin demand in the context of a broader global trend, countries are increasingly searching for alternatives for the dollar, and that most of these alternatives still involve trade-offs such as limited liquidity, political dependency, or logistical friction. Bitcoin, of course, as we understood and have understood for a long time, is neutral, and it is a final settlement instrument. They're not using crypto, they're using Bitcoin for this reason. A large portion of this article that we're looking at here explains Bitcoin through game theory. And again, it's the correct use of game theory, not the Fui Egbo guy version of that. It's a system, of course, that aligns incentives so that honest participation is more profitable than cheating. Miners secure the network because they're rewarded for following the rules, while dishonest actions are punished economically because invalid blocks are rejected. This creates what he describes as the Nash equilibrium, in which rational actors cooperate with the protocol because doing otherwise is costly and ineffective. In simple terms, Bitcoin works not because people are morally good, but because the system makes rule following the best strategy. It's what I've said for a long time, that Bitcoin accepts you for who you are. You don't have to be a better person for Bitcoin to work. It doesn't require increased morality on the part of Bitcoin users. It doesn't need scolding and nagging. The nagging thing didn't work, right? The nagging thing, we tried that with the universities to destroy capitalism and make it better. It didn't work. Game theory just changes the incentives and forces people to play a game in a way that the outcomes and incentives align, such that we can get back to having a healthy farming culture, right? That's the predictive outcome of these kinds of things. The predictive outcome, the game theory of having the system function the way it does, to lowering the IQ to participate in the economy, means that you're going to have more people that are going to be able to save their money and not have to beat the bankers and the policymakers. And in that equation, they're able to focus on their craft, and crafts that make people money and make people happy involve farming. Farming is a great activity if you're not living on a fiat standard. So he expands this whole rule following game theoretic argument beyond individuals, corporations, and government. He draws on ideas, of course, from the sovereign individual in this article. If you read towards the bottom, you'll see him talk about sovereign individual stuff, arguing that Bitcoin gives people a peaceful way to exit systems they no longer trust. Instead of relying on political reform or physical migration, individuals can move their savings into a borderless, censorship-resistant network. He applies the idea to nation states, suggesting that countries face a strategic choice: adopt Bitcoin early and gain financial and geopolitical advantages, or resist it and risk falling behind. In this framing, Bitcoin becomes a kind of a global coordination point for money. And he makes a really bold claim at the end, of course, that we've talked about many times on this show, that Bitcoin can reduce war. The reasoning is pretty simple, and this is the game theoretics of the cost of violence that we've been talking about for a while. Fiat money creation in World War I was really about how to finance war. I've been saying for a long time that Bitcoin is here to end World War I. It never ended. World War I stuck in perpetuity. When we talk about forever wars, what we're talking about is the ability to finance war through the birth certificate collateralization system, which is what went into the fiat industrial mechanisms. Having the Social Security numbers collateralized, the birth certificates collateralized, is what allowed for the future projection of revenues from the Treasury that was used to justify the Federal Reserve buying up all kinds of bonds and getting involved in this mechanism of creation of debt as money. So we see here that because Bitcoin can't be printed at will and must be acquired through real economic effort, it can impose stronger limits on government's ability to fund prolonged war. And he argues that if adversaries both hold Bitcoin, they share incentives for stability, since conflict would damage both sides' wealth. In that sense, Bitcoin becomes not just a monetary tool, but a mechanism that could encourage cooperation over coercion. So it's a pretty important article. It got a lot of traction yesterday for that reason, and really does underline exactly what Marty Bent said, that Bitcoiners have been ahead on this curve. They've been directionally correct. And this is one of the most important moments, because everyone was waiting for this peace treaty or the ceasefire, and seeing the whole system come out, seeing this whole scenario play out, is exactly what Bitcoiners said was going to happen. And so watching the ETF, watching the thing happen in the same day, and even seeing the quantum FUD that's happening at the same time, you start to realize that many people on Wall Street, many people in the upper echelons of this game theory taking shape in the world, have seen that Bitcoin is now center stage in this macroeconomic change, that it is the principal actor, and that it is having these huge ramifications because of the game theory. And some people even wondering if all of this quantum FUD going on has to do with the Mythos finding that existential bugs in Ethereum and other crypto things are out there, so that there's this Bitcoin quantum thing going on right now for that reason. I don't know if that's true, but luckily, we're already getting some solutions to these quantum questions here. Bitcoin devs just built a prototype to protect wallets from quantum attacks. Even in worst case scenarios, Bitcoin could pause normal spending and still let users recover their funds using this new method. Quantum defenses are already being built here as we see. This was published, I think, last year. The post-quantum security of Bitcoin's taproot as a commitment scheme. This from Blockstream Research. So we'll see. Who knows? But that's an Adam Back thing. Now, going back to all of this change and bimetallism coming and attacking Wall Street, attacking fiat, entering this new era. It's important as Bitcoiners to not embrace any of this FUD and not embrace any of this misery that's out there, and to remain optimistic, because it is the nihilism that we got to worry about. And here's Matt Odell, and I don't think he's being nihilist, but here he is taking the analogy of what Michael Saylor is doing and applying it to crypto. Now, I'll warn you right away, thinking in analogies is stupid, okay? Analogies are not analogies. Sorry, analogies are not reality. Analogies are just things that are similar. You can't apply analogy as a way of thinking. Now, this thinking about crypto, what he's saying here about crypto makes entire sense, right? A pseudonymous dev launched a Solana token project that endlessly mints tokens to sell to retail for Bitcoin. The stated goal is to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible. He issues tokens about a set schedule. He can effectively choose at will when to print more tokens, sell them. Each token represents equity in the company holding the Bitcoin, but token holders have no governance rights. Recently, he created a staking ecosystem with 4 yield-bearing derivative tokens funded by sales of the main token. If you stake them for a month, he pays you in US dollars. Many Bitcoin developers would call that a scam, but if you slap a suit on the dev and list the tokens on NASDAQ, it's the most important Bitcoin company. So where he's wrong, okay, where the analogy breaks down, so he's 100% right that Bitcoiners would recognize this as a crypto scam. The difference is the crypto scam guys aren't running a game theoretical attack on the fiat system. Remember, the reason why Michael Saylor is doing this is because he gets cheaper dollars the more Bitcoin he accumulates. He's creating a literal physics, gravity. That's why he's always talking about Newtonian physics when he's talking about the speculative attack he's making on the US dollar. He's doing this to change the entire system, not to make a buck off of the willingness of retail to back him. So Odell here makes the mistake of applying analogies as a way of thinking. Analogies aren't a way of thinking. They don't do that for you, right? You can't just take an analogy and then that's your idea about the new thing. There's always one thing that makes an analogy need to be an analogy. There's one difference, right? There's always one difference. Otherwise, analogies would work perfectly. And they don't, because there's always a difference. The difference here is that Michael Saylor is not trying to scam you on a fucking ICO, okay? He's not trying to do that. He's using, and when he says, but slap a suit on the dev and put the tokens on NASDAQ, that's the point. The point is putting it on NASDAQ, because NASDAQ will then give you all this free trash token in order to buy more Bitcoin. So if you get cheaper trash tokens to buy more Bitcoin, and the more Bitcoin you buy, the cheaper your trash tokens get, you're running a speculative attack. You're using game theory. So this is like, I get why he's doing it, but it's skipping the phase. We're going to bimetallism first. We're not jumping and skipping bimetallism to go right to the Bitcoin standard. That's not what's happening. We're going through the same system which existed before we created the fiat apocalypse, before we created the fiat scam with the Federal Reserve and the collateralized birth certificates. So that's what created Wall Street into what it is. We're taking it down bit by bit, piece by piece. It'll be a generational affair. And then finally, we will get back to the point where we're on a Bitcoin standard, similar to what we were doing with a gold standard many, many years ago. But Odell here embracing, I think, I mean, just this is a fallacy of the way you'd think, right? This is not precise thinking. Analogies are fine to help you get started thinking about something. They're not good to replace your thinking about something. They don't work that way, because again, there's one thing that's different. You think any of these ICO sons of bitches get free money from NASDAQ and free US trash tokens? Of course not. They don't get anything like that. They're just trying to do exit strategies to fuck you over. Completely different. The game theory is different. The setup is different. What Michael Saylor is trying to do here is acquire more Bitcoin. And he found a magic trick to do it using the physics of fiat against itself. That is the game theoretical way of seeing it. So I don't think Odell is at all a nihilist. I don't think he understands how Wall Street functions in this case. I'm not sure about that. But again, do not use analogies to think that they and use them to apply to a situation as if it's a thought. It's not. There's always a difference. Everything he's saying here about Solana is true. But to say that it's a simple thing, right, that the scam applies also to MicroStrategy is wrong. It's not true because of the game theory, because of the optimistic outlook that I think Michael Saylor has for Bitcoin. He's betting on Bitcoin winning. And by betting on the physics of fiat failing, then it's naturally and inherently optimistic bet. Unlike any of these misanthropic fucking crypto people, again, the crypto people, right? Everything I said before about Wall Street and how it attracted the best and brightest, all this stuff about the best and brightest going on Wall Street, that's what we're going to change. We did have the best and brightest. The problem with crypto, and I've said this consistently on this show, crypto is telling you that although we had the best and brightest in Wall Street for years, you needed a 130 IQ in order to keep up with the bankers and the policymakers. And you had to have a Series 7 license, and you had to know what was going on with this and the spread and the information asymmetry. You had to know all of that stuff, right? The crypto people from the very beginning were saying, no. Now you also have to be a computer science guy. You got to learn how to stake on chain. You got to learn how to use all the bonded curve automated market makers, and you got to go higher IQ to be on Wall Street now. And Bitcoin said no, right? That's one of the main differences between crypto and Bitcoin. One is suggesting that you need a low IQ to save money because it's just Bitcoin. And the other is suggesting you need an even higher IQ than they currently have on Wall Street to save money. Which future do you think Michael Saylor is betting on? He's not betting on more Wall Street people. He's breaking Wall Street. He's taking the physics and shoving it down their goddamn throat. That's what's going on here. And someone had to do it. Someone had to go through the bimetallic era in this way. Someone had to launch a speculative attack on the US dollar. We've seen this coming forever. We talked about this forever. We celebrated Michael Saylor getting involved in public markets with Bitcoin in 2020 for this reason. So it's not the same as crypto at all. Nothing to do with crypto. So the analogy completely falls apart at that point. So I love Odell. I'm a big fan of Odell. And directionally, I understand what he's saying. But practically, with game theory, there's no point being a nihilist about what Michael Saylor is doing. It's just physics. It's just physics. He's using physics against fiat to end fiat. And I endorse it 100%. And I don't think it's a scam at all. Not even a little bit. I think he's right on the money. And that's why it's important not to be out there blackpilling. Here is JD Vance talking about the blackpilling and the nihilism yesterday. And this is a great quote about what's going on in America. It's a great quote about what's going on with Israel. It's a great quote with what's going on about the fractioning of MAGA. It's a great quote about what Odell is saying. There's no need to be out there blackpilling. There's no need to be saying Michael Saylor is running a crypto scam. He's not running a crypto scam at all.
The piece of advice I'd give to you, and I give it to American students, American conservatives in particular, is resist the temptation to think that victory is immediate or that we're going to win back our civilization through instant gratification. I mean, this institution was founded in 1996. It's far more influential than it was back then, but I think a lot of people, this is particularly true in the United States of America, if they see something that the administration does they don't like, they say, oh, that's not what we voted for, we're going to check out of politics. No. That's the exact wrong response. If we do something you don't like, the response should be to get more involved, to make your voice heard, and to try to push things in the direction that you want them to be pushed. Our civilization was not built overnight. It's not going to be saved overnight. And so what I'd encourage you to do is stay involved, be patient, and don't let disappointment turn to checking out of the system entirely. There's way too much of that, I would say, in the Anglo system and the American system. There's way too much, I didn't like this thing that the vice president said, or I didn't like this thing that the president did, and I'm going to completely check out. We call that blackpilling in the United States of America, and blackpilling is how you give power to the forces that are trying to destroy what our ancestors built. We need to take power back from those people and build the kind of institutions that can actually save our societies. It will not happen overnight. It will not happen in the term of one prime minister or one president, but it will happen so long as we keep our faith in God and we work hard to achieve it. That's what we have to do.
Yeah, and look, again, I'm not accusing Matt Odell of blackpilling. I think he believes what he's saying. So it's not blackpilling, and he's a great orange pillar. So orange pilling, of course, is the antithesis of blackpilling. And I know Odell to be an optimistic and he believes in a bright golden age that's possible. So you just have to be careful about how much of this hysteria and negativity you allow in. And here Mark Andreessen saying the same thing. We live in an era of admiration, of hysteria, neuroticism, and narcissism, endless waves of panic, perpetual emotional incontinence. You know the answer. The answer is building. The answer is not being a nihilist. We even had Promethean Action yesterday talking about nihilism and how important nihilism is to this whole equation, and how important nihilism is to this entire fiat industrial complex, the City of London, this globalist banking regime. And here you see the Promethean Action folks talking about nihilism and what JD Vance had to say about it.
So while the Iran deadline was ticking down, Vice President J.D. Vance was in Budapest, standing next to Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who is facing a re-election bid. And he didn't mince words about what this fight is about.
I'm not here primarily, Victor, because of the economic cooperation between our countries. I'm here because of the moral cooperation between our two countries, because what the United States and Hungary together represent under Viktor's leadership and under President Trump's leadership is the defense of Western civilization, the defense of the idea that we are founded on a certain Christian civilization and Christian values that animate everything from freedom of speech to rule of law to respect for minority rights and protection of the vulnerable.
The vice president talked about civilization, not trade policy or military alliances, but civilization itself. And then Vice President Vance named the enemy and the stakes.
Now, under Viktor Orban's leadership, you have held on to the civilizational goods that make a country worth living in the first place. Sovereignty, prosperity, history, a sense of national community, the redemptive nature of bringing new life and new families into the world. You have stood up to the bureaucrats. You have stood up to the nihilists.
Nihilists. That is the precise word. Not just bureaucrats. Nihilists are people who reject any higher purpose to civilization or any universal principle beyond power and rules. That is the imperial system stripped to its core. And Viktor Orban, who's been fighting the Brussels machine from inside Europe for 15 years, attacked the nihilist cultural ideology of the Europeans and their continued support for the Ukraine war. He said, this is more than just irresponsible. This is equal to suicide. Suicide, let that sink in. It connects directly back to Iran. The Brussels machine and Washington and London's war party are the same force, two faces of the same imperial system. Both depend on permanent crisis. Neither believes in the future or in the dignity of man. And Trump is refusing to give the empire what it wants. He gave Iran the civilization choice. And at last year's Munich conference, and again in Budapest, Vice President Vance has made the same offer to the Europeans. You can build and you can believe in the future. And for the most concrete image of what believing in the future looks like, you have to look up. While the world watched the Mideast deadline tick down.
And indeed, that's what we've been saying on this show for a long time. The economy is switching between the fiat, moral posturing, the nihilism, to the actual building. That's why I say that going from financial engineers as the best paid job to farmers as the best paid job is a game theoretic outcome of embracing Bitcoin and creating this change, this turn in our economy, and this turn towards a more optimistic future. So that looks like it's what's happening, and you're seeing it from all around. The American system in the building is starting to become more and more important. The American system and the difference between politics and the failures of politics really are being exposed. And of course, we've said for a long time, Trump is not a politician. Trump is a builder. He builds skyscrapers, right? He was a huge builder. Now, he had the performative aspect because he was also a television star, but don't forget, he's a builder turned television star. So it's natural that he can use the performative aspects that he has in order to change the system back to the building world. And here you can even see this, the one Sarah McBride here. Here she is. He dressed, I don't know, here, yes, a man in a dress makes an excellent point. Now, it's going to be annoying to listen to her voice. I really can't stand this kind of a voice. But here she is describing what's going on with fake politics and them being performative. So ironic, of course, funny too, yes, but this is really where things are at and why we have this change.
I used to think that the antics we saw from folks in Congress who were
I can't listen. I can't do it. I don't like the hormonal voice thing. I can't handle it. So I won't subject you to that. For many of the folks that you see taking up oxygen on the other side of the aisle in particular, it's not the pursuit of a rational goal. It's actually an addiction, and indeed calling politics fake and performative is perfect. She's right. This is entirely true. It is fake and performative. That's why the actual building is going to become more important. And that's why the whole world of posturing and fake moral outrage and all of these things is running up against reality, and it's having a head-on collision. The incredulousness of our legal system, for example, and how detached from reality it's become is becoming more and more easy to see. It's becoming focused. We're seeing it more and more. Stevie Van, I personally want to thank you for not making us listen to that. Yeah, I can't handle it, honestly. When I hear the hormonal voice stuff, it really drives me nuts. It's just such a weird way of speaking. De Carlos Brown, so if you didn't see it, this was the murderer of Irina, how do I say her name again? Zarutska. So found, of course, incompetent to stand trial. Here's all of his other capable of standing trial, incapable of standing trial. What a miscarriage of justice. Sickening. You're seeing the entire system, the entire legal system fall into disrepute. Matt Walsh blog is saying here the same thing. The whole idea of incompetent to stand trial is fucking nonsense. As if you're too incompetent to understand that you shouldn't butcher an innocent person on the train, you should die. Period. Arrest, convict, execute. You are not fit to be a part of human society. How many more innocent people must be sacrificed for the sake of coddling and babying the absolute scum of the earth? Our ancestors had it right. They would have had this guy hanging from the gallows an hour after conviction. The old system of justice was light years better than this insane bullshit we're dealing with now. And that's why, even going back to what's going on with the courts and the Middle Eastern war and the tariffs and everything, why you're seeing Trump completely manipulate this legal system, and you're completely changing the American political system as a result. Here yesterday, he says a country supplying military weapons to Iran will immediately be tariffed on any and all goods sold to the United States of America, 50% effective immediately. There'll be no exclusions or exemptions. Fugitive Caesar is saying a hilarious power grab where the Supreme Court told Trump he can't do tariffs like this, and he's just doing it anyway under a new justification and daring plaintiffs to go through another 10-month lawsuit. Hail Caesar. So we have an entirely new political system emerging because of the incredulousness of the old system, because of the nihilism of the old system, because of the complete and total failures of the old system. You're having the actual job of president getting remodeled, much like Caesar. It's true. Whether you like it or not, it doesn't really matter. It's what's happening. And the republic, I've said for a long time here, has been reduced to nothing but the executive branch, and that's all we kind of have left. And so watching Trump steal the power of the purse, watching Trump run over an incredulous legal system is what we said was going to happen. It's more real game theory, not fake game theory. And you're seeing this whole transition happen right at a important moment between the building and the true nature of capitalism versus the nihilistic zero-sum communist fallacy that we see around the world right now. And you're seeing the performative nature get exposed. The people who are more performative, less real, less substantive, less building actually get exposed. Here's a great example. Ro Khanna, of course, we know Ro Khanna as a quasi related to Bitcoin. I've met him. He spoke at Bitcoin 2024. Here it turns out that Ro Khanna, who's doing all the wealth tax stuff as well, here getting dragged by both Pompliano and Chamath. Nancy Pelosi, take a seat. There's a new king in town when it comes to Congress members being abnormally good traders. Of course, it is Ro Khanna. Here, the sad thing is that Ro is the guy preaching for socialism while he is the most active insider trading in Congress. He is a terrible representative for Silicon Valley. And indeed, why you're seeing this huge now contrast, and we're finally getting back to the point of understanding what I think is the great fallacy of communism, right? Which is the zero-sum nature, right? This idea that one person's wealth is based on another person's poverty is finally getting exposed. That was the big moral sleight of hand played by the communists for a long time, without admitting that the truth is that zero-sum didn't apply to capitalism. You know, I figured this out when Steve Jobs died, and everyone was like, well, he didn't even give money to poor people, and he was so rich, he wasn't a philanthropist like Bill Gates. Remember all that stuff when he died? And I said, well, he solved global illiteracy with the iPhone and the iPad. What else does he have to do? Why does he have to give his money away? Isn't that wealth? Isn't making sure every Indian can read a form of wealth? I think so. I think Steve Jobs probably made more people wealthy in the world, dragged more people out of poverty than maybe anyone in history. I mean, it's debatable. But he made microchips useful in everyone's pocket. And those microchips became applied to literacy, productivity, everything else we see, and had nothing to do in the end with him becoming a billionaire. And so we're finally back on this subject of, and I think we're headed there as a society now for the first time to be able to talk about this contrast in terms of zero sum versus the compounding benefits of capitalism. And so here you see this analyzed on this podcast. We're seeing this broken down and explained, but here I'll play the I am John Mackey quote.
Capitalism created the possibility of the win-win-win. It used to be a zero-sum game where somebody won, somebody else lost. And the biggest mistake people make, intellectuals in particular, they still think we're in a zero-sum world. They're obsessed with some billionaires because Bernie Sanders thinks that Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk somehow stole the money from the people. They don't understand that it's this prosperity machine that's creating more, not just for those billionaires, but for everything that they're touching. They're creating value for their customers. They're creating value for their employees. Their suppliers are flourishing. Their investors are seeing their capital go up that can be reinvested in compound. All philanthropy ultimately comes from business. That's where the profits are.
Where's the money come from?
Where does all the taxes come from? And ultimately comes from business as well, whether you're taxing the employees who are flourishing. This is the engine that's lifting humanity out. And the entrepreneurs are the drivers of that engine. And somebody like Elon Musk, he gets a very, very, very tiny sliver of the value that he creates for the whole world.
So you're seeing it more and more, right? Here's the interviewer, David Senra, saying capitalism created the possibility of the win-win-win. It used to be a zero-sum game, indeed. You're seeing this start to play out, indeed, and more people picking up on exactly what all of this means. You're seeing, indeed, here this, David Hawkins talking about it. Every time I listen to Bernie Sanders, I think of the pie. He's worried about slicing the pie and distributing the crumbs to everyone. I always ask, why not just bake 10 more pies? Abundance means not having to slice the pie, but instead share or give away what you can't eat. And we're going to see that. It's already happening in Argentina here. You see the Washington Post amid Argentina's rapid transformation from nearly a century of socialism to free market capitalism continues to prove the superiority of the latter. It is rare that we get to witness such a radical experiment in real time. Here's the Washington Post of all places. Jeff Bezos, as I said, starting to participate more in this revolution, right? Free access this article. I can read it. Wow. No, I'm not sharing my fucking email with you scumbags. Get the fuck out of here. So now the good news is we're seeing the contrast between socialism and capitalism more vividly than ever. And one of the big pieces around this is this, never ending amazing bonanza of information we're getting from the failure of the California high-speed rail story. So I love that this has been going on for so many days. Here, Arthur McWater is saying, Elon literally built a fleet of planet colonizer class rockets for under 10 billion US trash token investment at SpaceX. The state of California spent 150 billion US trash tokens to build a half mile of high-speed rail. There is no limit to the incompetence and fraud of bureaucrats. Elon saying here the Boring Company could build a Hyperloop tunnel from downtown San Francisco to LA for under 5% of this cost, and it would be a technological marvel exceeding any high-speed rail. And Hans Monkey saying exactly that. If you give away 126 billion to subsidize free flights between LA and San Francisco at current demand levels, you could fund roughly 150 to 200 years of travel before the money runs out. But of course, it was all just for fraud, right? And Elon says it right here. The real reason for the high-speed rail is money laundering to bureaucrats, consultants, and unions, not actually transport. That is where the billions spent have gone so far. That is why they don't want an actual cost-efficient high-speed transport system, and why the entire socialist model is getting scrutinized, questioned, why it looks like it's falling apart, because it's simply too much of a scam to keep going. If you were just complaining about the 4 billion US trash token dollar trip to space, how it could have fed the poor, but you're silent about the 126 billion US trash token for a train to nowhere, it's time to stop pretending your politics have anything to do with feeding poor people. Again, it's just the performative nature. It's just the fiat aspects of performance and having this entire drama play out in such a way that you're able to stake a moral high ground and say you're the better person, but it's falling apart so quickly that it doesn't look like it's going to be able to sustain itself any longer. And again, why I continue to predict that the audits going on, I mean, now we're on KTLA, right? So it's starting to spread even more. And like I said, the audits in 2026, both in terms of fraud, both in terms of what we saw from all of these, let me see if this, all the fraud stories, they're going to continue to get attraction. They're going to continue to gather all kinds of attention and all kinds of, they're going to focus the narratives on the corruption of the current system, and they're going to provide enough fodder for appetite to completely change the system. Now, I know Trump was elected by a bunch of optimists and a bunch of idealists, and a lot of them feel let down because Trump has focused on these foreign wars, and Trump has been quite focused on the Iranian question. Now, again, I believe this is because Trump is trying to pull the rug on the international communists, the international nihilists, the international people who had you stuck in a fake prison of two ideas for generations. And so I continue to believe that that's the reason why he did it, but he's going to pivot hard into these questions coming up soon. And you're going to see this contrast. And contrast is going to be the number one thing you get out of these audits. These aren't going to stop. I think you're going to see a steady supply of them all summer long. And you're already seeing the contrast from the migrations in the United States and the birth in the birth rates in the United States. Here's Benny Johnson saying that census data shows that red states are having a baby boom. Blue states are collapsing in population. Blue state populations continue to collapse as third world legal and illegal immigrants plunge under Trump, while Red America is indeed fostering growing American families. And here you can see what's going on. More births in February 2026 than in February 2025. And you're seeing it in plenty of red states, a couple blue states, my home state here indeed, but nobody lives in my home state anyway, so no big deal. So you're seeing this more and more, and Prof. Sainonge saying progressives are removing themselves from the gene pool. Unfortunately, their public schools have your kids, and you're seeing this more and more. You're seeing the contrast more and more, and it's another reason why the whole audit stuff is going to continue to be important. I mean, we forget what's already happened. Just listen again to our favorite Rice and Bananas girl. Remember her, Rice and Bananas? Just listen to this. I don't think you're ever going to get a better video than this, and it's going to be played on a loop between now and the midterms.
So I'm Somali. I'm proud to be Somali. To me, being Somali isn't just eating bananas with rice. It's a lot. It's like it's an interesting thing. It's very hard to describe what it means to be Somali and what it means to be American.
I love that she was arrested right after.
It's like a cultural fusion. It's kind of like the bananas and rice. You know, people don't really see, like, you know, it's you know, people don't think, oh, you can eat bananas with rice, but that's
just so good. There is banana, then there is rice, then there is bananas. Just too good. No sound. What had no sound? Which one had no sound? Was it bananas and rice that had no sound? Well, you get it. Bananas and rice. I don't know why the sound doesn't play sometimes. I just can't explain it. Hate it that it doesn't work. I got to play it one time if you guys didn't hear it. It's too good.
I'm Somali. I'm proud to be Somali.
Yeah. Okay, it was fun. I won't play it again. So we're seeing this entire system fall apart before our eyes. The democracy, the bureaucracies, the corruption. The sound was there. Okay, good. And we're seeing it, you know, another great example here in Australia, right? We've seen, again, I mentioned this yesterday. I spent 3 hours reading Ben Robert Smith court documents this morning and found something pretty incredible. TLDR, previous court cases addressing Ben Robert Smith war crime allegations relied on testimony of illiterate Afghan villagers who called him an infidel. Part of the war crime claim made against Ben Robert Smith relied upon testimony of these people who openly told courts that they viewed Roberts Smith as Australian soldiers as infidels. Nine media relied upon the testimony of 3 key Afghan witnesses in order to support the claim that Robert Smith executed a farmer named Ali John, who he claimed was a Taliban spotter. These men were illiterate subsistence villagers who expressed hatred for infidels, including Australian soldiers, during the trial. Hanifa, pictured in court drawings wearing a green shawl, acknowledged directly that foreign soldiers were called infidels or kafir, and that he did not like them. He also confirmed that persons killed by soldiers were called martyrs, and that he hated Australian soldiers for going near our women. He said, if they are coming to our houses, go inside to our women. Of course, that's what we call them, infidels. So I can understand that, but again, you're dealing with people here that are probably not so credible. And so this is just another one of these issues that's showing indeed how Australia, here's Curtis Yarvin saying, this is hilarious and disqualifies Australia from even being considered a country. As Bismarck said of Italy, it's a geographical expression. Speaking of countries that aren't real, Canada, this is a new one here. You're going to love this one. We have the newest outrage group. Hopefully the audio works here.
Deal with the ongoing genocide of MMIW G2SLGBTQIA+. This is abhorrent. Deal with the ongoing genocide of MMIW G2SLGBTQIA+. This is abhorrent. deal with the ongoing genocide of MMIW G2SLGBTQIA+.
Let me try. Deal with the genocide of MMIW G2SLGBTQIA+. What's the plus? Elon saying today Canada is cooked. Just not serious countries, just complete and total shitholes. This is, who knows, someone from the third party NDP whining about shit and showing that this entire system just lacks all credibility. Speaking of lacking credibility, remember that you've got Canadians screaming about authoritarianism in America, and they're fascist, they're not democratic anymore. And coming from Canada, it's hilarious. So here we see in Canada, and you've already heard Trump complain about this, but now you've got another floor crosser in Canada. So this means that Mark Carney, who was not voted to a majority, will have his majority by Monday. And that means he doesn't need to have an election for 4 more years. In Canada, the elections come every 5 years by law. So he's been in power for a year, so he doesn't need to run another election for 4 years. He was elected to a minority parliament, and now that looks like it is going to get flipped. Here we see with the latest defection from the Conservative Party, Carney commands 171 seats in the House of Commons, just one shy of majority. There are 3 by-elections next Monday, 2 of them in safe Liberal ridings. Carney will probably get his majority, after which he'll have a free hand to do whatever he wants. At the same time, these defections are destroying the Conservative Party of Canada, and with it, the electoral legitimacy of the Canadian government. What's the point of voting Conservative if the MP you elect transmogrifies into a Liberal the moment they get to Ottawa? What's the point of voting at all? In Canada, there isn't any. Canada is going to indeed get the majority that they asked for, and they're going to keep calling Trump a fascist and authoritarian, even though there's nothing like rule of law or democracy going on in Canada. Canada is completely compromised, which leads me to believe that the actual end of Canada, this is a good thing. This is accelerationism in a nutshell. Of course, accelerationism being one of the tenets of Curtis Yarvin's worldview, of course, right? We see Curtis Yarvin here laughing at the failures of Australia, Canada being the biggest failure of the lot, and having Canada fall in this way is probably great, because the only answer going forward now, this makes it even more clear, this makes it even more obvious that Alberta must indeed go for its sovereignty when they have the chance next referendum in the autumn. So you're going to be able to get this, and you're going to be able to see this change as a result of this. They're stealing the election in Canada, but it's not going to work. It's going to backfire. You're going to see Canada break into pieces. You're going to see the Conservative Party was the only thing that made it possible to even believe that the country could have legitimate political opposition. With them falling, you're going to see Alberta, which used to be the cradle of the Conservative Party, completely opt for sovereignty. And so this is a good thing. It looks bad. It looks like Carney is stealing it, but again, this is a choke on the bone situation. So you remember in The Matrix, the very end of The Matrix, how the whole Matrix series ends in the 3rd movie, where Agent Smith gets absorbed into, or Neo gets absorbed into Agent Smith, and that annihilates Agent Smith. And so what you're going to see here is the Canadian system absorbing the failed political order and stealing this election. And what you're going to end up seeing as a result is the annihilation of the Canadian system. So this is a choke on the bone situation. This is the federal government trying to swallow the majority government in this way to take control. And in the end, it will get what it asked for, but it will create an equal and opposite reaction in the other direction, and will stoke the fires of separation in Canada. It will stoke the fires of separation in Quebec, in Alberta. You're already seeing Quebec react to this. Let me find... I'll see if he said it in English. I think he did. Yeah, there it is. So I'll play this for you. Let me see if he plays this in English. Let me know if the audio comes through. So this is the separatist leader. Now, the problem with this guy is he's a leftist. What I've been telling you before is that leftism is going to collapse as well. Quebec only adopted leftism because Quebec is still a high trust society. It's like Japan. The closest analogy you're going to find to Quebec in the world is Japan. It's Japan, Quebec, maybe a little bit of Norway mixed in there. Now, the reason these places are that way is because they have a type of ethnic homogeneity. And in the case of Quebec, it's ingrained in the physical land. So you can't just put immigrants in Quebec and expect Quebec to change. It's not the same as the rest of North America. We never hollowed out our small towns in Quebec. If I go up this river that you can see in the background here, all the way past Quebec City, it's just village, village, village that have been there for 400 years. And they've had this suburban scale with French families and French infrastructure integrated into the physical land for hundreds of years. That's why the British did not imperialize them. They couldn't. There was no way to do it. The British would have had no problem imperializing them if they were like the Irish that they could replace. They could change the farming system. The farming system in Canada and Quebec was related to the actual St. Lawrence River, and it became unmovable. And that's why they accepted the Quebecois as Catholics. That's why they accepted them as they were after the end of the French Indian War. They occupied them and tried to subdue them, but none of it worked because they controlled physical territory in ways that most populations don't control physical territory. So Quebec, even though it's socialist, isn't really the type of socialist that you're used to hearing about in America. They're socialist because they are a people and they know how to make socialism work, but they can make any system work. You could throw any system in Quebec, just like you can throw any system in Japan. Japan's very socialist, by the way. I don't know if you realize that. It's, if you go in the north in Hokkaido, it feels like Soviet Union. It's really socialist, right? Japan, very socialist. Israel, very socialist. These places that have this ethnic binding in them can be socialist, but they can be anything they feel like. Anything will work for them. You can make them do this, you can make them do that, you can do this, they'll just make it work. These aren't the same as most populations. You know, Quebec has one of the highest IQs in the world as well, just like Japan, just like Scandinavia. So these places are able to make whatever system you offer them work. So it's no proof that communism or socialism works when you point out Japan and Japan and Quebec. It's just proof that they can make any system work for them, despite the failings of the system. So here, and you got to remember that Quebec socialism rejected immigration, mass immigration. It understands immigration in labor terms, and so Quebec has never been a fan of socialist immigration. In fact, the number one reason they hate Canada now is for foisting all kinds of immigrants onto them. They want their social programs to work for their people. That's why they've adopted a entirely atheist public policy. That's why they've adopted all kinds of anti-religious type movements, because they believe that protects them from this type of multiculturalism. So here you see Quebec now understanding that there is no real political fight in Canada, and that there's a uniparty that's now set up, and that it is not in Quebec's interest. So you're seeing the equal and opposite reactions happen in Quebec, and I'll play what the leader of the separatist federal party, he's not the leader of the provincial party. He's just there to represent Quebec federally against the parliament.
The ideological differences between the liberals and the conservatives are getting thinner and thinner by the minute. And if you are a progressive liberal in that liberal caucus, you must start asking yourself, who the hell is talking for me in that caucus and in that party?
So again, Quebecers can be progressive liberals and still be pretty aligned with Trump MAGA-ism and those kinds of things. So it's an important distinction. And now we're seeing this, really big spread between communism, capitalism. We're seeing these conversations, the ineffectiveness of politics. We're seeing the abandonment of politics as a lever for change and a lever for making the world a better place. And it's all coming back into the area of hard work, of actual production, of actual material realization of things. The fiat world is quickly disintegrating, and you're seeing something else come out. And even in the job numbers in America, you're seeing that same question, the Kobayashi letter saying here, the US job market is weakening. This is another sign that the fiat system is falling apart, that we're going to have to find a new equilibrium for work, for proof of work. Here you're seeing the number come way down, and we're seeing Sitebringer with really great analysis saying the labor market is worse than anyone in finance is willing to say out loud. The Kobayashi data is directionally right, even if the recession framing is lazy. A 3.1 jolts hiring rate is not cooling. That's the rate at which the economy stops regenerating. Long-term unemployment climbing to 322,000 year over year, while the headline unemployment rate holds steady at 4.3% is a masking effect. The denominator is shrinking because people are leaving the labor force, not because the economy is absorbing them. Labor force participation at 61.9% is a pre-pandemic number. Average hourly earnings at 3.5% year over year, with core PCE above 3% means real wages are negative or flat. The consumer is running on fumes and credit. The OBBA just cut the safety net underneath the bottom quintile while handing the top decline a 2.7% income boost they'll save, not spend. Now, here's what I actually think is happening beneath the surface. The US economy is in a pre-recessionary configuration that doesn't match any clean historical template, which is why the models keep saying no recession, while the vibes say otherwise. The labor market isn't contracting, it's calcifying. The consumer isn't collapsing, they're depleting. The fiscal impulse from the OBBA is real, but regressive and front-loaded. The monetary policy transmission mechanism is broken because the Fed can't cut into an oil shock with sticky core inflation. So the only relief valve is for the shock to resolve itself. And the shock is a complete and total change in financial systems. But luckily, we have the tools coming online right now. We're seeing more of the AI stuff happening, more of these one-person companies that are going to start. And here, indeed, even the Claude managed agents, everything you need to build and deploy agents at scale, already just took away the whole agentic wrapper. So you're already seeing a turnover within AI jobs that's happening really quickly. Sitebringer here. This is the moment the labor market changed, and the announcement is dressed up as a developer tool launch. Build and deploy agents at scale, prototype to launch in days. Read that from the perspective of every company that currently employs teams of 5 to 50 people to do tasks that can be described as a workflow. Customer support, data processing, code review, research, report generation, scheduling, triage, all of it. Every single one of those teams just got a countdown clock. The video tells the real story: PagerDuty alerts, AWS CloudWatch, Sentry error monitoring, a dashboard support, indeed, interface, loop breaking and restarting. This is an autonomous system that monitors, diagnoses, and diagnoses and acts on production infrastructure. The kind of work that currently requires on-call engineers making six figures. The agent doesn't sleep, doesn't take PTO, doesn't burn out at 3 a.m., doesn't quit for a competitor, costs a fraction of one salary. Managed agents is the key phrase. Managed means Anthropic handles the infrastructure, the scaling, the reliability. The company deploying the agent doesn't need an AI team, doesn't need ML engineers, machine learning engineers, doesn't need to understand the model. They just describe what they want done and deploy it. That collapses the barrier to adoption from hire a team of specialists to have someone who can write clear instructions. Here's the part that connects the deeper pattern. Ghost Murmur found a heartbeat in the desert. Artemis 2 put humans on the far side of the moon. And now an AI company just launched the framework for deploying autonomous AI workers at production scale, all in the same week. The species just made 3 moves simultaneously, further into space, deeper into the physical world, and now replacing human cognitive labor with scalable autonomous agents. The acceleration is happening across every axis at once. Nobody is synthesizing these three events together, but they're the same signal. The boundary of what humans and machines can do moved in every direction this week, outward, inward, and now into the economy itself, which is why we're headed to something completely different. Here's just a visual of what this means. Anthropic killed 1,000 plus agent startups with managed agents, coding agents that ship PRS, finance bots that process docs instantly, productivity agents that join your team, infra you'd spend months building. They did it again. And so big changes. Nick Carter put a good spin on it. It says it should be pretty obvious at this point that AI is a force multiplier, not a labor substitute. It helps experts be better at things they are already good at. It doesn't let beginners match experts. If you can't write, anything you write with AI will be an unmitigated slop. If you aren't a software engineer, anything you vibe code with AI will have security holes and won't be able to scale past a toy demo. If you blindly trust AI to deliver on a research task without knowing the subject matter, you won't be able to fact check it. That there's this weird misconception of AI as something that completely levels the playing field. I don't see it that way at all. There are mathematicians driving novel lemmas with off-the-shelf models. Normal people can't do that. AI is a tool that makes experts better. It doesn't make anyone into an expert. So again, that's what you've heard here from the very beginning, and why I think that the Bitcoin model of Bitcoiners and what we're able to achieve changing the economy is so important, why the P2P information network around Bitcoin is so powerful that we can leverage it. That's why it doesn't need to go through every pleb holding a wallet. That's why it goes through the Strait of Hormuz. It goes through the energy industries. It goes through a recalibration of finance. It goes through the pillars that are holding up the fiat system until now. All of these things are what's changing, and it's why you're going to see change at the scale we're about to see it at. We now have a completely different asymmetric influence on the economy as Bitcoiners, why people like Michael Saylor can run this game theoretic speculative attack on the US dollar and get away with it and change the entire world system, because it's not democracy. We're not in anything like that anymore. We're in a completely different world. And now people can worry about AI being centralized and AI being able to be the new choke point in all of this system. But even that's changing. Brian Romelli saying here about this big change with the Anthropic agentic breakthroughs, saying 24 months and you'll be running near Anthropic Mythos class open source local AI on a gaming class computer at home. We will look back at this point in history as important, interesting, but dealt with. I can say that process has already started. Indeed, here's Brian Romelli talking about it. I will play a little bit of the audio here.
Imagine reading a highly technical, 244-page corporate system card that details the capabilities of literally the most advanced software ever created.
Right, which is already a lot to process.
Yeah, but then you realize that the document itself was actually written by the software it describes.
It is genuinely mind-bending.
It really is. Welcome to the Read Multiplex Deep Dive. Today is April 8, 2026, and our mission today is to explore a monumental shift that just happened quietly overnight.
Yeah, Anthropic just dropped the system card for their Claude Mythos preview model.
Exactly. But we aren't just going to read you technical specifications today. We are looking at this specifically through the unique insights of Brian from the Read Multiplex.
Which is so crucial because his insights lay out the actual path humanity is about to take through this whole transition.
Right. And if you look online today, you immediately see that ubiquitous internet joke everywhere. You know the one?
Oh, the "We are so cooked" headline.
Yes.
Yeah.
People are just using it to get YouTube likes, farming engagement and panic clicks. Well, okay, let's unpack this because we are going to dismantle that narrative entirely.
Absolutely, because Brian's analysis reframes this moment. It is not a doomsday scenario.
This is AI doing, like he creates this AI podcast.
But before we get to Journey itself, we have to look at the catalyst. Because, this isn't just a slightly faster chat bot that helps you draft better emails, is it?
No, not at all. Setting the stage here is vital. There was no glossy PR announcement for this, no executive pacing on a stage under a spotlight.
Right, just a dense technical release.
Yeah, authored autonomously by the AI. We are witnessing the arrival of a true autonomous operator. And to understand why this fundamentally changes everything, you really have to look at the compression of time.
Time compression, right.
Yeah, we are talking about tasks that previously required dedicated teams of highly trained human experts working for months, and this system compresses that timeline down to mere hours.
Wow. Months to hours. Okay, let's look at the benchmarks in the source material because they illustrate this perfectly.
They really do.
But I want to make sure we don't just throw numbers around, you know? Let's talk about the cybersecurity scores. It scored 83% on CyberGym.
Which is already massive.
Right. And on Cybench, it scored a perfect 100%. It just absolutely destroyed previous records.
Okay.
But for someone listening who isn't a cybersecurity engineer, what do those tests actually measure?
That is the crucial question right there, because these aren't just like multiple choice exams where the AI guesses the definition of a virus.
Right.
Cybench and CyberGym involve highly controlled end-to-end enterprise network simulations. So imagine a sprawling corporate computer network with firewalls, servers, employee terminals, hidden databases.
Like a real messy corporate setup.
Exactly. And in these private simulations, the AI was tasked with navigating that complex environment. It didn't just assist human operators.
Right.
It actively matched or completely beat senior human red team experts.
The professionals whose entire job is to hack into systems to find vulnerabilities.
Yes. The source material notes that it autonomously chained exploits, escaped sandboxes, built proof of concept attacks.
Wait, it generated attack code with persistence and exfiltration?
Yeah, and reconstructed a full attack graphs in under 30 minutes.
Under 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm struggling to grasp the scale here. When they say it autonomously chained exploits, does that mean it's just, you know, guessing passwords millions of times a second? Or is it literally inventing new ways to break into systems?
It is the latter. It's actually inventing.
That is terrifying.
It is. But to understand
Which
the
is why you're
mechanism
seeing
here,
here
you
all
have to
this
look at its
Bitcoin
architecture. This
quantum
model
FUD.
utilizes a 1 million token context window with multimodal inputs.
Okay, so it can see everything.
Great. A human hacker has to search for information sequentially, you know, jumping between different tabs, running a scan, reading the results, planning the next move.
It's a linear process for us.
Exactly. But Claude Mythos Preview doesn't do that. It holds the entire network architecture in its working memory simultaneously. Oh, wow.
Because it can see the whole board at once. It can spot a vulnerability in a web server, realize that it connects to an outdated database, and write custom code to exploit both at the exact same time in milliseconds.
Okay. It's like we've been fighting a battle with swords, and suddenly someone drops a fully automated drone factory onto the battlefield.
That is a perfect analogy.
The human time bottleneck in cyber conflict has...
See, that's where analogies are useful. They're not, they're good for scale. They're good for getting a bit of an insight into what's going on. But the minute you try and apply it literally, like I was saying with the Matt Odell analogy, they're not a substitute for thinking. They're just a directional indication of scale and things like that. They're not useful to reapply your thoughts. So whenever you feel the urge to use an analogy, it's for this. It's not for thinking about something in a direct and concrete and accurate way. It's just directionally accurate or not. But it shouldn't be a substitute for thinking. And you should never make arguments. Remember that. You should never make arguments with analogies because they can't win an argument. They don't have that function. They don't have that scale. They don't have that utility. So again, the problem is analogies have one factor generally that's different. That's why you're using an analogy. And so if you apply it directly, and that one factor isn't accounted for, it doesn't apply. And in the case of Matt saying that if you just add the token to NASDAQ, then it's the same scam. It's not the same scam because Michael Saylor is using physics of fiat against it to attack fiat. He's not trying to run an ICO, right? He's not trying to do anything like that. So an important distinction here.
Just completely vanished. I mean, it found and developed exploits for previously unknown zero-day vulnerabilities in every major operating system and browser tested.
In less than half an hour?
Yeah, half an hour. That explains the speed. But frankly, if it's generating weaponized attack code in 30 minutes, keeping this model on a public server is like equivalent to leaving a loaded weapon on a park bench. How is Anthropic actually securing this from public use right now?
Well, you've hit on the exact reason why this model is currently locked away from the general public. What's fascinating here is the absolute dual-use nature of this capability.
Dual use meaning offense and defense. Exactly. The exact same analytical power that allows this AI to map a network, hunt down a zero-day vulnerability, and instantly write a patch to secure it can be inverted.
Right.
Without safety rails, it can find that vulnerability and exploit it at machine speed. Because of that dual-use reality, access right now is reserved for a very select, highly vetted circle.
The sources mention specific companies, certain governments, and internal teams running defensive initiatives, like Project Glasswing.
Yes, Project Glasswing is a great example.
Ryan describes this current period in a brilliant way. He calls it the get your house in order era. It's like an exclusive dinner reservation where the guests aren't actually eating. They are just sitting at a table sharpening knives and frantically stocking the pantry.
That is spot on. The organizations with early access understand that their current defensive advantage is temporary. They are using the AI to patch their systems before the offensive capabilities leak out.
Right.
The actionable advice coming out of this phase is intense. I mean, we're talking about changing key passwords weekly, updating your operating systems the absolute millisecond a patch drops.
So that's what we were talking about here in the comments, indeed, about the whole, where is it? Evidently, if you don't reuse Bitcoin addresses from Narwhal tacos, you gain a massive quantum computing resistance without any change in code. That's absolutely true. And what people have been saying from day one about quantum. Now, remember, quantum stuff started in the early days of Bitcoin. What are you going to do about quantum? And it's where I came up with my idea for aligned AI with the God constant, is what I called it back then. But I already had this idea that the AI, if you get to that point, you're going to have to talk it into doing it. It's not going to be that simple. And so it kept coming up in the early days of Bitcoin, and it's why I was always thinking about it. And indeed, we knew even then, if you kept the addresses refreshed and you didn't reuse, it was why people were talking about the good habits of non-address reuse at the time, because indeed it does introduce enough randomness that the quantum systems can't triangulate and use graph analysis to all the tools that elliptic and chainalysis and all these guys use. Because remember, the elliptic guys and the chainalysis stuff was already, we saw them as scummy, and but they were useful in that they were showing us vulnerabilities and what the future vulnerabilities of Bitcoin would look like. They didn't invent graph analysis, of course. It's just something that people have been used all the time to look for collisions and look for duplications and look for the ability to go through the forensics of wallet use, which is how you end up isolating wallets and figuring out passwords and things like that. So indeed, the randomness and the surface area of attack gets greatly increased, or the surface area that you need to, not vulnerability, but the surface area you need to cover to attack becomes greatly increased. So it's an important distinction indeed. All right, so that's enough of that AI audio for now. Let me stop sharing and I will read some comments, see how y'all are doing here. So you are completely correct about that, indeed. Is Nolan really a count? Did you see the interview where Zhang confessed he is not really a professor? I did, yeah. And he, in the same interview, is where he said, I'm not a Chinese agent. I'm just allowed to operate on the normal internet in China, and they're trying to co-opt me, but I won't let them. How'd you get the fucking internet, buddy? How'd you get the internet in Beijing? How do you get on YouTube? How do you post on YouTube from Beijing if you're not already co-opted, huh? How do you do that? So he's Professor Zhang is totally independent, guys. Let me just log into YouTube from Beijing. I don't want to get co-opted. Indeed. So it was a really funny interview. I actually did see it. I try to steer clear of Professor Zhang content, but every now and again I come across it. So he did say, I will give Professor Zhang credit, because now remember, the danger of Zhang is always that, 80% of what he's saying is true, right? So he's really good at mixing in truth and hiding and splicing in his fake stories, which is exactly how the most experienced brainwashers people function, right? So Professor Zhang will say a lot of true things, and that's exactly how you mix in using persuasion. You get people's defenses down, shields are lowered, and you can inject the fake propaganda into it using that method. So very sophisticated attack methods by Zhang for sure, and all of which you need to really pay attention to. So, but the good things that he said is that Canada has become a totalitarian, authoritarian society, and so good for Zhang for spreading that. He gets them right from time to time. My thing is just be careful, because he's using that persuasion in order to inject his false narratives simultaneous to the real things that he's saying. It's persuasion 101, as we learned from Scott Adams. So always remember your Scott Adams lessons, because they apply at all times now. He justified by saying Charlemagne the God is actually a god. Is not actually a god. I saw that. Is Nolan really a count? Exactly. There you go. See you later, Jack 2K at the Fiat mining job. JD Vance is a great communicator. Love Promethean action. Aren't they the best? Don't they have some of the best worldview stuff? I'm a big fan of the Promethean action guys. Indeed. Lee J 369. This will be the model currently being floated by the libs for the Montreal-Toronto high-speed rail project. Exactly that. It's going to cost billions and billions of dollars, and we're never going to get any high-speed rail. It's not going to happen. I was a big proponent of high-speed rail in Canada for a long time. On the corridor, it makes sense. Where Quebec City to Detroit, it does make sense. It's flat, it's straight, it's pretty simple to build. The track is already there. You just have to replace the gauge and get rid of a few median crossings, and you're good to go. So it shouldn't be expensive at all, but they're not going to be able to do it. This is a Mark Carney project. They're not. Nothing like that is getting done. So I wouldn't worry about it. Good morning from Mexico. How you doing out in Mexico, JB1551? Bitcoin Jesus says Canada wasn't included in the ceasefire. It sure wasn't. Go get them. Go get them. Got to do it. We get this. Hyper Bitcoinization. All central banks need to buy Bitcoin. 50 trillion market cap incoming. Probably got to do it. I just saw that Hank has come into the room. I'm going to bring him up on stage. Let me just get rid of this chat comment here and welcome Hank. How you doing, Hank? How you doing, my man?
Hey, Nolan. Morning. How are you guys doing on the Great Awakening on this fine Thursday?
We are enthusiastic about the future of humanity, my friend. We are loving life over here. We're loving.
Glad to hear it. What have y'all been enthusiastic about this morning? I would love some good news to start.
Well, the Bitcoin on the Strait of Hormuz thing is such a great story. So
it isn't though, right? Like, isn't it? Don't you think that'll kind of conflate the narrative a little bit that people already tend to do anyway?
What do you mean?
Like, we already hear this ridiculous narrative like Bitcoin's for criminals and stuff. And I feel like we're going to hear like, oh, the Iranians are accepting Bitcoin now. And you're going to hear more of those people come out of the woodwork and be like, see, it's to get around sanctions. I don't know. I think there's a good and a bad to that.
Well, I think it won't even be about sanctions. I mean, look, the Americans, I don't think really care about this toll and the money going to Iran. And they've let the whole Iranian infrastructure pass. You heard about that Citria investigation where they sent the guy with 15K and cigars.
No.
They sent 3 journalists. So they sent 3 journalists to go check out what's actually going at the Strait of Hormuz last week. And this was before the peace treaty or the ceasefire had been announced. And he's like, it's all I see are ships cross. Like, it's just ships everywhere. So it's only America stopping ships that would go to Europe that have been the question, which I think, and America could have supported them from the very beginning. All they had to do is send tugs and fireboats there. That was the reason why they haven't escorted ships through, because the tugs and the fireboats aren't there. If a ship gets hit, they don't really have a way to move it. But they could have commandeered fire ships from the Emiratis. there's been a willingness to not let ship traffic to American allies go through. It's very good for America because we can sell the oil ourselves, but it also exposes the European weakness on the subject. So there's a guy named John Conrad and another guy named Sal Mercogliano. Those are the two best maritime, they're merchant marines. Those are the two of the best maritime accounts out there. They run a daily podcast on YouTube, and they've been saying since over a month now that it's entirely deliberate, that the Americans have kept traffic low. They don't really want to open it, and why they've allowed the traffic to keep going on the Iranian side to go to China and all these other places, because they want a regional fractured price of oil. So that's really what's most important, is that you're seeing the toll paid in Bitcoin, but ultimately, just like we offer oil for Bitcoin as of a couple of weeks ago on Roxham, ultimately that's what you're going to see in this bimetallic world of like consumption money. That's going to be the fiat currencies of countries, and a neutral money for the settlement of oil pricing. Why you're going to see Bitcoin take over. So these are the first indications directionally of bimetallism taking over the world. So it's very bullish. I don't care about the criminal part. That doesn't matter.
All right. Well, that's bullish news. And now I have a new maritime podcast I need to be listening to. So it does sound like a good start to the morning.
He's a really cool guy, man. Sal Mercogliano. He's got a real familiar, friendly way of talking about it as well. So go check him out on YouTube. Yeah, he does daily videos about right now what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz. I don't think his channel's ever been as popular as it is this past month.
I bet. My time is here. Finally, people are tuning in to the #1 maritime podcast in the world. Like, this is
well,
my
what's
moment.
funny is that my audience here, when I found him, they're like, "Oh, Sal," and I was like, "What do you mean, oh, Sal? Like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? How are you guys
I'm behind
this guy?" So we got a great. We have the Great Awakening audience, the most informed audience in the world, I would say. So let's bring them all over to your show. What do we got going on?
Oh, we got a lot. We'll be talking about obviously the ceasefire, and then Israel seems like launched missiles on Lebanon right after that. So we'll be chatting about that. We got news coming out of Delta, the astronauts making their trip back from the moon, which is interesting. The military draft situation, which is exciting. I can't wait. I think I'm just aged out of that, but I'm not sure if my little brother is. So it means something to me too.
When they're all, you see those ones in Thailand that get drafted, and it's really funny. Everyone has to go every year, and they do a lottery. So it's like red ball and a black ball. And if you get the black ball, you get exempt. If you get the red ball, it's 2 years.
Oh, man.
It's a big dramatic. They try and make it fun and friendly, but
that sounds the opposite of fun. That sounds very stressful.
I don't want to do it.
With that being said, I kind of feel like there's a case to be made that everybody should have like a year of military service or something. I'm not wholly against that, but I don't know. We'll see. There's a lot to talk about. We'll save it for the show. Nolan, I'll let you and your crew at the Great Awakening wrap things up, but Nolan will be with me for this Roxham TV News first hour. It's just a bit, everybody. So Nolan, I'll see you in a couple, buddy.
See you later, Hank. See you soon, man. All right, everyone. There we go. I watched Sal. I've been watching Sal for almost 2 years. I told you guys are the most informed audience in the world. I wasn't just making that up. I bet you I got people over here on Nolan, your greatest superpower is your optimism. Thank you. I appreciate it. Carney's only real project is extracting as much treasure from Canada as possible before the end. It looks like it. Yeah, it looks like it. Bitcoin Deb Scott was always relevant, but sure would be great to have him now. Man, I've missed him for a long time. It's been no good. I've been wishing for him for the past little while for sure. JJ Fox, Sal, Sal Mercogliano. Indeed, I think Lee J369 was like, oh, Sal. He was one of the first people, you know. Bitcoin is for optimists, our beacon, our lighthouse. Indeed. I feel all warm and fuzzy. Military roulette for some people. Yeah, no, you guys have it was just funny when I found Sal, because I found it to be a credible thing that all of you guys, lots of people here knew about him already. So we love Sal. We get a lot of information from him over the past month. Indeed. All right, folks, you heard Hank. I'll be over there. I'm about to play the logo followed by the thanks for watching screen. Just want to tell you guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. I'll see y'all tomorrow, Friday. Peace out, everyone.